each different bubble of reality is true.
A galactic historian is a person that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma.
Nudge, nudge. It's the Holy Grail.
Improvise. Mysterious.
It's counter psychic intelligence.
Why is DNA farming of this star cluster so important?
Because we do manifest our reality. We do create our reality.
You know what I'm going to do? Hold on 1 second. Not Zero Hedge. What was that place that I got that article from?
Do you know what the theme of it was?
Hold on. Here it is. It is the Zero Hedge article. Famed war reporter Robert Fisk reaches Syrian chemical attack site and concludes they were not gassed.
It's actually a good one to bring up. I love Robert Fisk. I have for a long time.
Now, what do you know about, you said you love him. What do you, give a quick, thing about Robert Fisk? He's a super war reporter. He's been everywhere.
Well, I mean, you can shut me down on this, but in Australia, there's a really famous reporter by the name of John Pilger, and he's forged his own truth in a very, very dense time. Like, he went to Palestine, he went to Cambodia, he did a massive thing on Diego Garcia, how that was taken.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So he's really challenged a lot of the global narrative, and even he did an interesting theme about going back a few years where he was talking about the World Bank and IMF, and he actually interviewed the guy before Christian, whatever her name is, that's in charge of the IMF. There was another French guy that was outed by a really bad sex scandal sort of thing. But he had interesting perspectives, so it was just ironic. But he's been sort of a hero for me for a long time. And I put Robert Fisk in parallel to that sort of old school sort of reporter that goes out into the field and finds a story in truth. And Robert Fisk has been based in the Middle East for decades. And I even read in that article that he speaks Arabic and all that sort of stuff. So he has a great appreciation for the cultures in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
He's sort of a guy that would not leave a stone unturned, and totally very disciplined in his craft, and would go to the source and get sources, and has a lot of rapport with probably the apex leaders in the region.
Exactly.
That allow him or afford him a voice, because he affords them a perspective that breaks. It's like the Trump Twitter thing, that he breaks he trolls direct to people, where, say, Robert Fisk provides a voice and an avenue of truth that really the narrative can't handle because he's so exceptional.
So this is reported around the world except in the United States. The Robert Fisk stuff. None of the major news stations had any of that one. Now, the reason I bring this particular one up is because Syria is still the center of, they're trying to shut the energies down. They're trying to keep the war energy over the sacred geometry systems that are there and the energy harvesting systems that are there.
Yeah.
Now, those systems eventually need to be repaired, and they are in great disrepair now because of what's been happening on the surface. Now, there's great subsurface technologies that were, let's just say, military bases were built on and around, Syrian military bases were built on and around. And part of this whole proxy war thing by multiple things is to capture certain deep underground military bases from the Syrian surface organizations there, because there's, hardcore technology that they want to get access to down there. Now, in Galactic History, I talked about these things called control rooms. There is control rooms, multiple control rooms in that area. Multiple different forms of technology, from ancient builder technology, founder species technology, and technology that is extra universal. All about the opening and closing of portals in the oceans in that area. The Mediterranean, the Red Sea, That whole area. It's going to bring huge volumes of life force.
Yeah, I've actually, while you bring that up, I don't mean to interrupt you. I've actually seen a lot of articles about there's a lot of effort around Crete to access oil tenements in the sea.
Yep.
And there's a lot of conjecture around that. So that's quite interesting, but I don't want to take you away from Syria, mate.
Mm. Trying to figure out how I can layer this next part in.
Yeah, I'm actually planning on releasing an AI technology takeaway and cyber warfare video that's been brewing for a while. And one part I wanted to get for that was related to the control rooms.
Now,
The AIs in the control rooms, because AI has been a thing, yeah.
These control rooms in Syria, now there's bases have been built on top of them for hundreds of years. Now there's just a modernization process that went on where you have more modern concrete bunkers built on top of things that were built on top of things, to make them more orbital, more damage proof from weapons being dropped upon them, so on and so forth. There are, let's just say, factions, or we'll just call them proxy armies, that have captured something that has been long into the Syrian military control when it deals with a portal generating system that can directly go to the moon, to Mars, Venus, Saturn, and a handful of other larger objects, not necessarily moons, but asteroids and stuff. And it's a system that was highly prized during the build out of the solar system in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Now, that system, it had its own technological issues that cost a fortune. And a secondary system was discovered in the 70s and the 80s, and that system went offline to be repaired. And a number of these mercenary factions that, or those factions that got in there and captured those bases, were actually able to send people off-world and bring people off-world on-world. So there was a way of getting people that were in off-world scenario back here without any information or exchange or immigration or anything.
Mm.
So you have a big exchange of highly technical personnel who have lived off-world their whole life or suddenly on-world on Earth, embroiled into this proxy army now.
Mm. So this was sort of, can I say it's going back to, say, the battle for like the Golan Heights with Israel and Syria back in the 70s, I think?
Yeah, but Israel's still battling here too. They're still the thing. They're still bombing stuff too. But the whole thing is trying to kick out these proxy faction armies. Now, ISIS and ISIL and all those others, there's about 80 proxy faction armies going on there right now. Each a different aspect of the apparatus trying to maintain control and stop people from breaking in and get access to high levels of technology that, in normal scenarios was perfectly well guarded. Now we're into, the 8th year of that war?
Yeah.
It's only a matter of time before the chain of a command breaks down and you can penetrate it. And that's what these proxy armies are doing. They've been waiting and waiting and waiting for the chain of command to break down so that they can break into these facilities.
Mm.
Now, there was a situation where a proxy faction did get into a Syrian base that did have, we'll just call them Vimana-type craft. Now, they have not been functioning or working for decades, and they were something that was kind of more like museum pieces. But when that faction broke in there, they got one to work. And this is really what, let's just say, put a twig in Trump's underwear. Because it meant they might actually have to show technology to shoot down one of these craft that could dodge a lot of their standard terrestrial defense systems. And then you have extraterrestrial defenses. And this particular Vimana can actually faster than light teleport, not faster than light travel. It becomes a single photon that can multiply exist in many places simultaneously until it decides to where it solidifies, which makes it very, very hard to target. And imagine if something like this flew over the city of Russia and they couldn't shoot it down, and its one or two weapons on it can lay down 200 or 400 laser blasts before it goes somewhere else. And it could just keep doing that over and over and over again against every place. Even though the gun on it may be very small, it is still affecting the narrative itself.
This is fascinating, all right? Fascinating. Because, as always, I can link up Andrew with soft disclosure in TV shows. And there's a TV show, a sci-fi TV show called Dark Matter. And this sort of mercenary group of highly trained military people that would be employed by these corporations, because they're not governments anymore, they're corporations, or they're monarchies on a galactic scale, right? And then this little one group of people, they steal this technology called a blink drive, and the blink drive would allow them to go anywhere in the universe in any time, get beyond any shields, blow shit up, and then get out of there and stuff. It's exactly like that. Feels like to me.
Interesting. Well, this one you actually you simultaneously exist, so the ship turns into thousands of ships.
Yeah,
and you don't know which one's the one that's going to solidify. It was an aspect of during an era where there was a specific type of defense here, because they could have tens of thousands of these Vimana that could make it look like there's tens of millions of ships coming at you, and you wouldn't know which ones are the real ones. And there was no way your sensors or your physics or your science could figure it out, because they were all real until it solidified. Anyway.
So how long ago, I mean, how old technology we're saying that this came? Just a quick to get an appreciation.
So 17 million years ago, the second rise of Atlanteans, when the majority of the Andromedan defender groups came here to maintain reality as the reality cops, essentially.
So thanks for that. But back to now with Trump not being happy.
Yeah, he got the twig in his underwear with that, because this put him in a situation where they had to show a different form of something they didn't want to show. Because again, I will maintain Trump is a mercenary inside the apparatus right now.
Yeah.
And if you really understand that statement, he is a mercenary inside the global apparatus of control. And he is the head of the military. He's the head of the esoteric battle system. So everything to this prospective president, seen and unseen, whether he knows it or not, is going to be a battle going forth now. Is he going to show technology? Is he not going to show technology? Because there's only certain things you can say without revealing that there's infinite energy technology and then the world markets crash. But he can do a laser strike on blah, blah, blah and say this is technology we're rolling out and telling you about it, and the people go, oh, okay.
Yeah. My attitude, and it's just a perspective, is everything will be done to create a distraction to avoid revealing the tech that breaks the narrative.
Correct.
And obviously, despite what drama he sort of offers related to his outbursts and trolling, as you say, which is funny, he's still totally in alignment with the narrative because he's an aspect of the control.
Correct.
Um, so how much is he actually aware of, dude? Like, it sounds like he must be aware of, or information is presented to him that is effective for him to maintain the narrative.
So before he came into the office, he had his own advisors in the esoterica. He knew he could never get in there without doing his own version of that, hiring his own apparatus of psychic defenders and psychic offenders.
Mm.
So he has that apparatus that exists around him. That's why he's got his Mar-a-Lago compound. That's why he wanted to maintain Trump Towers. That's why he didn't put his companies into suspension like all the other companies that all the other presidents have done before him. Is he had to maintain his power, his esoteric power base, in which he can draw upon energy.
Mm.
That's what he is, a mercenary. He knew he had to go in there doing that. Now, once he became president, he understood that he would rapidly lose his previous focus by the sheer amount of information that the president has to be aware of, seen and unseen.
Yeah.
But he also knew he wasn't going to pay attention. That's why he brought in all military people.
Mm.
Okay? And all of the other ones they're supposed to be the elite. And he can't maintain a public presidency because he doesn't want to.
Mm.
He wants to change the presidency itself.
Mm.
Okay? And he's got reasons behind that. Because it can make him a very, very wealthy being who at the end of it can start his own Trump country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, despite him being an apparatus of the construct, reality, narrative, whatever you want, he's still got his own agenda in it, no matter what.
Absolutely.
So
It's a hierarchical battle now.
Yeah. So he's an apex being of his own organization.
He's an apex predator. Best way to put him. He is an apex predator, put in the apex position of having tremendous amount of power through the military wing of the esoteric systems.
So
Because he's got remote influencing brigades and remote attack brigades, and that's part of the military. It's been part of the military for thousands of years. He knew going in he would have access to that. It's not about just the nuclear football. There's other weapons that are way worse.
Yeah. One of the very early avenues of influence for the members was remote influencer brigades that I released in Andrew's member, which maybe it'd be worth releasing at some stage, but it's just there for those that are dedicated. If you're interested, go back into the late 2017 releases related to members content. But so this conversation we've had for maybe about almost 20 minutes related to Syria and what's going on, and a bit of the history and greater contents and stuff was related to Robert Fisk.
Yes,
and this article.
His article absolutely proves that there was no gas attack.
Yes.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Which has been a ploy that's redeployed many times, all right?
Correct. But there's only one guy doing it, not 55, making a global narrative change.
And Robert Fisk is, like, to me, it's like those, like, say I'll label him an activist, purely because it's true.
And to be able to get to Syria now with any form of passport is you have to have stroke.
Yeah.
You and I can't just fly to Syria right now.
Absolutely. It was actually quite ironic how quickly he got there as well, mate. Like within days,
Right.
Like, that's fascinating.
He went to Turkey and it was smuggled across. That's why.
And how quickly this article came out and his perspectives, because he actually has a lot of weight because he's so respected.
Right.
Yeah. So you found it quite interesting, mate. That's what you're sort of saying. It was quite fascinating in itself.
Well, the presentation of the article and then the ultimate is, why is it just him? If he was truly trying to make a change, there would be 40, 50, 60 people there, all with their own audience.
Mm.
You don't see that happening.
Mm. So it's also quite interesting because perhaps he's providing an alternative for those that don't want to buy it as well, you know?
Yep.
As far as don't want to buy the narrative, so perhaps I'll offer controlled opposition.
That's right.
Yeah. So who do you believe? That's the question.
Exactly. It's not about what you think, it's who do you believe.
Because it was actually quite interesting, the attack, right? From what I've seen, is there was maybe 100 Tomahawk missiles released from the narrative perspective, and what the Syrians say is that 70-odd were shot down, so it had minimal effect. You know?
Yes, but they were only shot at, I think, 3 bases. And the missiles themselves weren't actually targeting the bases. They were targeting the proxy armies that were trying to penetrate that base because there had been a breakdown in the chain of command. And that base had unique technological aspects within it that if that proxy army broke through and got to some of the lower levels, some shit would go down.
Yes.
You might have something come up from underground and fly above the atmosphere.
So potentially you could actually observe it saying that the Trump being the mercenary in control of the military apparatus of the narrative is working in partnership with Syria because they're seeing that they don't have control of their region because it's all about controlling the narrative.
Which maintains a global narrative. Remember, Trump's the military part of the apparatus. Syria's a part of the apparatus too. They're hollow earth beings that control that whole country, just like Earth, the United States and Australia and Canada, all of them. They all have their inner apparatus and sub-apparatus control systems. This is just the outgoing thing that maintains the global narrative. Trump still has a job, mercenary or not. If the global narrative comes undone, they'll string him up too.
It's all like covering our ass no matter what.
Right.
Number one, what effect does this have on my potential for being hung up?
Yes. Maintaining myself as president with whatever I want.
Yeah. But what I'm sort of suggesting, right, by saying that there's actually a relationship for this to happen, some unspoken agreement, even if they're presenting themselves as enemies, because it's all about the global narrative and what we actually are offered as what's going on, because an underlying faction is the Earth grid, the control rooms, and suppression of non-narrative technology that will break the narrative.
Correct.
That's the fundamentals that are going on here. And this is a consistent theme no matter areas in the world. Because I sort of see it quite simply, mate. And you have I love just like the details because I just sit here laughing, giggling to myself because it's like, of course. But I see it very simply, like a lot of the actions going on in the world, if you purely look at it, while they don't make sense, the sense is that it's locking down the Earth grid and what is going on relative to the Earth in those regions. So Syria's been a very pivotal place related to the womb chakras, and you've said that they're the first domino sort of thing.
That's right.
Interesting, mate. It's a good clip, like about 20-25 minutes on Syria.
There's a little bit more to add. Now, why is Bashar al-Assad in the situation that he's in? We got to go back.
Who? Sorry, who was it?
Bashar al-Assad, the president.
Assad, yes.
So we've got to know a little bit of the war, the Syrian history war. It's been going on, 8 years now?
Yeah.
Something to that effect?
And America wasn't in early. There was a lot of resistance.
Because they were letting the proxies fight.
Yeah.
That's when the global apparatus realized it had lost some level of control over the global corruption ring. Because there were factions, off-world factions, that were trying to get
access to technology to force disclosure.
Mm.
Example, if you have a team on Mars that's a high-end, super-end strike team, but they can't get that strike team to legally immigrate here to Earth because, they'd be tracked and followed, and you want to secretly bring them here, you need to have access to technology on the surface world to open up portals and bring things through.
Mm.
The whole proxies were to do that
Mm.
because there's scores and scores and scores of temples all throughout the Syria, Turkey region, so on and so forth, that have been known about, when properly activated, can produce portals that can take you to other worlds.
Mm.
Okay? They've known this. That's
Like
why...
Hellboy movie, soft disclosure.
Right. That's why there's a dictatorship there in the first place, to maintain control over that.
It's the narrative. It's the narrative governance required to maintain that
Right.
balance.
So an aspect of the apparatus was put to control that area, to stop archaeologists from discovering anything, and to put military bases wherever there is super high-end off-world technology.
Mm.
Okay. Now, Assad, I believe, you had the whole Egyptian revolution go on, and then Assad had a big issue with Israel, but Hezbollah began to attack Israel through Beirut,
Yes.
and this is what began Mossad testing their deep underground facilities to see if they could sell information to make it very hard for Assad to stay in power, so that the apparatus of control will come and remove him in power and put somebody else in place.
What sort of years we're talking about here, just to get it in
Maybe
reference?
probably 2010, 2011.
Yeah. I think Israel did a massive attack on Lebanon and stuff.
Yeah, they destroyed it.
Yeah. Just like there's always like Beirut was like the Paris of the Middle East. Like in the 70s, it was peaceful and stuff. And I know, like going back then, that Turkey had a lot of heroin and opium, and that sort of was the narrative back then that sort of brought it down. But obviously, this sort of stuff was the foundation of the reason for all that destruction.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, you had a huge removal of personalities from Egypt who, during their revolution,
Yes.
which changed the actual way in which the esoteric and physical technologies underground were respected. The previous guys in power used it to their advantage whenever they needed to. Now, how do I put this? The new guys that took over were more open at allowing other governments to come in and learn what was under there, as long as that government was under a black project and in part of the apparatus. So that they could get more people to go off-world. It's still about creating a brain drain here to get more off-world people exposed to that stuff. The proxy armies knew this and began forming in and around in Iraq. And then they had the whole Kurds thing until finally there was enough people who were smuggled onto this world that had full off-world technology to begin raising an army through mind control and through money here, so that they could have a potential of breaking into one of these deep underground bases or esoteric technology centers.
Could I offer this as an example of one of these mercenary armies, like Yasser Arafat and the PLO? Is that an example, or is that
An old faction, yes. An old faction. ISIL or ISIS is the main brand, but there's many sub-brands. And it's those sub-brands that represent the off-world militaries that are being brought here to crack the system, force disclosure. Because many of the off-world beings want disclosure here because they're slaves up there.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Because they know they can't revolt
very
up
complex.
there. Yeah, they can't actually revolt up. It's impossible for them. The technology's too strong for them to beat. But down here, it isn't.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about these mercenary armies because I've actually, this is complicated to bring up, but I've actually had some interaction with actually some of the, let's just say some of the regions in that area of the world, and I've been involved in galactic recycling, whole species, and also like getting some of these factions to put their weapons down and clearing them for resolving their karma and going back to source so they don't lose all their stuff, these are all sorts of things that are going on, and a lot of them are trapped, they're trying to, like you say, they're slaves and they're trying to get out of their crap situation, and it's just a mess. This is the hairball, details of the hairball in real effect, mate.
Well, you're right. And to add to this hairball, I was talking about off-world beings. Well, Syria itself has its own demonic presence all over the land. Okay?
Haunting sort of stuff, you mean?
Yeah. Thousands of centuries old.
Yeah.
Okay?
Very toxic and interfering with the troops and stuff. And this is exactly like that movie with Eric Bana. And we talked about the haunting sort of stuff as well in late last year. The what's the movie? Really, really good movie about Marines going over and getting haunted. Yeah, 2014. I forget it. I'll put the image up.
I forgot the movie too. Yeah.
It's a good movie. But okay. So that's interesting, mate, because there's just a lot of trauma in the earth, and it's not a place you really want to go to, as well.
The thing is, you now have some ancient demons meeting off-world mercenaries. And this is what a handful of those missiles that Trump shot were going to kill.
Okay. So they're powerful entities in themselves and causing added variables that need to be eliminated. Like the missiles can actually eliminate haunting. That's what you're saying.
No, if you kill the one that's possessed in it, you have a very good chance of killing the demon before it leaves the body.
Okay, so
especially
it's a bit...
if you're using an explosion-based weapon, because your kinetic force can affect the demon. It's all about how fast it comes on.
So this is a bit the metaphor of the hurricanes, like clearing that connection to human sort of thing. Yeah. So that if you disconnect them, then that clears it as well, but it's not ideal. Yeah.
Right.
It's a forced disconnect. That
can greatly harm them, and then the missile's kinetic energy alone can kill them. It all depends on how much resonant power they have once they've got kicked out of the body.
Yeah. It's a very important element you bring up, though, the unseen world related to hauntings and demons, because it is a constant in our reality.
Mm-hmm. Yep, especially in that area too.
Don't underestimate how much psychic protection is important in the world at the moment if you go traveling and stuff.
Right.
Because you never know. Like when you're familiar with your home and stuff, you're familiar, you're comfortable. But when you go into those foreign areas that you don't have a reference for, that can open up your field. So it's a good practice to incorporate into your discipline, energy hygiene, and mastering emotions, because that's a good avenue that they can get attached to. But not be in fear either. It's just an aspect of our reality all the time that we're interacting with and don't appreciate. Yeah. So is there anything else that you want to offer?
That's pretty much it. I think I'm talked out now.
Well, can I ask one more thing? Right?
Sure.
One more thing.
Yeah. Turkey's the whole government, everything is one massive criminal organization. One massive mafia. And it has been that for centuries.
But yeah, Turkey's gone real full full criminal with
Right.
Erogen like arresting all the governance and like lawyers and journalists and all that. Just massive like totalitarian like stuff. But yeah, I won't get into that. The Syria focus is pretty good, mate. So that's cool. But yeah, that's. I just wanted to add that to this conversation because it is a really important event that happened. Because with that, it created destabilization for these faction armies to really get some boost to want to go at Syria. You think, or yeah.
Let's redefine it. Many factions are there. As many as 90 factions and are there right now. Some are fully Hollow Earth rebels. Some are off-world rebels. Some are on-world rebels. Some are like American military training Muslim people how to be, fighters who then can go into these different groups. Because sometimes these fighters don't know that they're working for these factions or these proxy groups.
Absolutely. There's a lot of...
You still need guys with AKs and throwing grenades to make it work.
They don't have the technology and the influence and the information that we have. Absolutely. They're vulnerable to influence.
Yep. So you need a constant group of people willing to go out and put their life online for their religion. So you have another aspect there of mind control that's being used there by many different groups with different morals, okay, which is thousands of years old, protecting the Holy Land. But that's what they're trying to keep people focused on, is that protection of the Holy Land thing, the Christians. They want to see these Syrians fight like this. So they want to see the Syrians go down, and then the military arm of the whole world comes in and declares democracy in the Middle East. Which will then trigger the rapture or, I don't know, Jesus' butthole opening.
Well, I don't want to trigger you more and stuff like that if you're winding down, mate. But one interesting thing I saw, which is actually really significant, that hasn't really had much mention, is related to Saudi Arabia and the change that's gone on there. And I saw the head, MDB or whoever he is, he actually offered in a public way that Saudi Arabia will see Israel as a legit state, which they've been polarized for since creation, like in the 40s. So that's quite interesting.
But at the same time, the Saudis, was it just before, which was just before, let's say, November last year, it was after November, they arrested a significant portion of their
super elite, wealthy.
Yeah, of their elite. Yeah. And then they were like 5 months later.
They were shaken out.
Yeah, they're shaken up.
But I don't want to
get the off-world infiltrators out.
Wow, a purge.
Right. So to define this, let's put it this way. You have 200 facilities that Earth-based humans have built out in our solar system. You have 10,000 plus species that have a variety of bases all over our star cluster of 66 planets. So the real estate that humans from this global narrative have built out is about, 900 million out there. It's a pretty significant amount of people. And then people in ships that have gone other places, so on and so forth. They can never revolt over there. The technology keeps them too much control. As I said earlier, they can here. So there's this attempt from those off-world built-out places to send factions here to interrupt the apparatus. Now, some have joined the apparatus and have been a part of the apparatus for years, and now are coming to, their battle plans are coming to fruition, such as, certain ways that stuff comes out. Like Snowden. was an unpredictable. They knew eventually something would happen, but they didn't think it would happen that early with that big of a dump.
Because it's unpredictable.
Correct.
Despite their enormous mechanisms of algorithmic predictions.
That's right.
Mm. So it's instead of being on the offensive, in many ways it's defensive, reacting to things. Yeah.
Yep, putting on the defense, reactive defense. Yep.
For the narrative perspective.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is the underlying reasons for actions in the narrative that are amazingly greater scale. Are you getting tired or you're right?
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done now.
I don't want to push you, mate.
So the Syrian war.
Yeah, what about that?
All the wars that exist right now on our planet are meant to suppress the chakra energy that's below it.
Oh.
There are a cluster of womb chakras all throughout the Middle East, called the Garden of Eden at one point in the Bible. What it meant is there could be thousands of local realities within that zone that were all birthing new life that could be transported to a new blank Akashic Record planet. It was life that was meant to rapidly be created and then sent somewhere else. What's happening there now is war, so every time someone dies, they're instantly recycled back into the system of war. So you could die once and all of a sudden be forced to be a walk-in on somebody else who's dying.
Ooh, that could get pretty tiring.
And that is what's suppressing the energy of the chakras from waking up. These will be the first sets of chakras that wake up and begin to change the people in that area. And that's why there's war there. And that's why the rebellion started with a fruit vendor, because that was the first opening of the collection of those chakras.
Andrew, there's been a question in the chat there for a little while. The significance of the womb chakras opening last week that you reported in the Middle East. Just wanted to have you re-express the significance of what that means.
The womb chakras that are opening there, it's not fully open. It's about 65 to 80% open, and it's based off of the positive and negative flow of polarity that's going on with our macro world government in a system of domination and control, trying to resolve a large volume of internal disputes, and these internal disputes are about theft from thieves. Okay? And this is the macro, the upper etheric worlds, playing out into our macro-micro world, the highest end of our world. You're disabling domination and control, which means you're looking at it at the systems layer, and you're looking at it the energy, at the reality rule layer. And there are thousands of beings that are rewriting the reality rules. And a series of rules have been slyly rewritten, that the system of domination and control's own definitions are turning against it now. And there are a tremendous amount of energy beings that hold the system of domination and control together by being bonded to sacred geometry buildings that are not honoring their contracts anymore, not holding energy to transfer to the system. And this is representative in the different banks that are willing to tell the truth, because they know that if they don't follow the order, they get kicked out of the universe. They get told to go to another universe, and that was not part of their experience.
And this is the reason why one of the many reasons why the war in Syria is going on at the moment is to try to suppress the womb chakra openings.
Correct.
The shift that's going on.
Correct. It's to prevent Earth from having a full menstrual cycle, which is where all 200 womb chakras open up in a series, in a pattern.
How would we, what would we experience if that happened tomorrow, for instance?
Dreams. Your dreams would expand manyfold, and you'd rapidly begin to resolve your paradoxes with the Lemurian or Atlantean timeline genocides. You'd rapidly understand. You'd have an oversoul review on a dream time level, where you would be able to have a life review of every life you've lived in this universe and other universes, so you can understand the totality of the decisions the I Am Presence must make when you go back to time and no time, and you begin cycling through the process of 2011 to 2014, and then when the 2014 process is done, you go through another review of what you went through to get through what you went through, and that's middle of 2014, end of 2014 to 2017, which is the second layer of the macro dream world that makes sure everyone is informed of their choices from the highest to the lowest vibration of each individual multidimensional entity that is a part of this galactic ascension machine, which is going to be broken up, and those planets are going to be sent back to their original spaces.
So the whole process, the whole dream time aspect of this process of awakening is actually going to build as the chakras open.
Correct.
So the significance of the womb chakras opening is actually huge.
Gigantic.
Pivotal. Thanks for the question, Martha. I hope that answers it.
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
We're doing fine. We've just been having a good conversation over here. You made it to the airport.
Very cool.
You made it to the airport.
No, we're on the way to the airport. We're on the road to the Hui. Should be about 30 minutes trip there, maybe 20-minute trip there, and we got to drop the rental car off and get to the airport. So I got maybe 20, 25 minutes until I got to drop the rental car off.
Excellent. Well, look, we've been having a conversation about the usual wide variety of things. 9/11 itself is sort of prominent in people's thought because of the date, and other questions have been posed. Would you like to jump straight into questions? Did you want to tell us more about what's happening with you? What would you like to do?
What's going on with me is what's happened is the first womb gate, the womb chakra in Syria has awoken, and it awokened on Tuesday this week. And the irony of that is, if you look on the news, you'll see kids that are being shown gas attacks on the public televisions, and seeing all of these what I call Baghdad moments, where the reality itself can't fully function, and all it can do is show the propaganda at its fear point value.
Now, you referred to Baghdad Bob, I think there. You broke up just a touch. Baghdad Bob, I'll just remind folks, was that functionary inside the Iraqi government that was proclaiming that the Iraqi army had successfully beaten off the invading armies whilst there were NATO tanks coming down the street behind him. In other words, propaganda that's so obvious it's hilarious.
Right. And for anyone that watches the news, what have they been showing the last 7 days? Endless amounts of videos of people going through sarin gas attacks with their eyes glazed over, little kids in convulsions and vomiting, people lined up in hospital rooms or makeshift morgues, all dead from sarin gas attacks. And if you look at those videos, you really look at those videos with your heart, your real heart, and not the etheric programming, you realize that those are not live footages, that those are not footages of the Syrian people, that those are really not real videos. They're all enactments.
So what we think is going on, that is, the information is partially untrue, is actually not quite correct, that it's all being fabricated.
Well, the reason it's being fabricated is because they can't convince anybody that there's nuclear weapons of mass destruction. So they're showing them, which started by Saddam Hussein using gas weapons on his own people, and they're trying to rehash that patriot part of the program of people here in the United States that go out and stop the big bad guy, when in fact this is just like weapons of mass destruction. It's a fabrication. You know, they tried to to shove fabrication down our throat with the second Gulf War, and people didn't buy it right away. But it's the Patriot program that turned us back into the war machine. And it's the Patriot program that's being triggered by those videos.
Now, the Patriot program, you've said in the past, the Patriot program is particularly effective.
Correct, because you're working on a nationalist concept that goes back to a constitution that has soul-family relations to it about being a free country, when in fact your vote really means nothing. Every time you vote, 505 people are determining what 380 million people deserve. That is not representative government in any way, shape, or form. So the banking industry, where not one single person has gone to jail from the 2008 banking scandal. Not one person.
You know, right there is absolute evidence that the system only ever acts to protect itself.
Correct.
Right there. Now, you spoke a moment ago of the womb chakras a womb chakra opening in the Middle East.
In Damascus. In Damascus. There's actually a cluster of 11 that are right in the Mediterranean area. And the first one went active under Damascus. The second womb chakra went active under Mount Fuji. And a third one has become active and then became passive. And when I say active, it is like when a woman starts her menstrual cycle, there's that little tingle that the body says to the mind, something is going on, and we're having our cycle beginning. This is the very beginning of a menstrual cycle for Earth, the one that's been held back by the amount of violence and war above those womb chakras.
Did you say there was one in Mount Fuji?
Correct. The one in Mount Fuji opened up about 25 minutes after the one in Syria opened up. And then there was a third one that went to go open up in the Bahamas, and that one was paused also because of the amount of violence that's going on in China, because there's a China womb chakra. There's technology over it right now that's preventing it from fully opening. It's only at about 6% open, and there's a tremendous amount of interdimensional off-world technology, as well as a series of timeline incursion events that are going to go on in Jingshuo, China. For anyone that's out there that's a news watcher, start paying attention to the Chinese news feeds. And what you're really looking for is the propaganda. The propaganda will tell you everything. You can read through it because you know what propaganda is.
Now, the womb chakra openings sound like they're pivotal towards the energetic situation moving forward.
All the people that will live above a womb chakra will go through a rapid cellular and DNA transformation based in their dream world. So the purpose of a womb chakra is Earth's original purpose to be a galactic seed planet, where those people that live on those areas are able to create life in a mass form and then bring that mass form of life to another blank planet and begin terraforming it at a soul level by bringing entire, continents of trees within a few days to be planted on the surface of a planet, an entire ecosystem of rivers and microorganisms all being delivered in a period of a few weeks, so a planet goes through a rapid transformation because you're bringing literally the soul from the planet Earth that has been bonded with the tree, and then that tree is being bonded to the new surface of another blank Akashic Record world, and that blank Akashic Record world is inviting brand new souls to come and live in it so that they can begin the brand new experience of the planet. That's Earth's original purpose. And the 200 womb chakras that are on Earth are to aid that process of mass transportation of plants, animals, vegetables, anything that can bring sustenance and life to other worlds on a mass scale, to seed planets, to create new forms of pineapples or coconuts or hybrid all of them with the will of the planet, because you're bringing shamans with you who know how to set up reality bubbles. All the things that I've been talking about, the awakening here, except that's a starting process on another planet.
Right, and it's going to be applied to us first, obviously, to reawaken
Correct.
this world.
So the people will suddenly learn how to farm perfectly. The people will learn how to get along. The people that are in the womb chakras that have Warrigal in them, they're the ones that are going to have the most amount of resolution done to them right away because they're the ones that need it. That is what domination and control has put as its pawns on the surface of that. And Earth can wipe the board clean of all of those pawns by awakening them all and starting a chain reaction of soul family density separation, where those that are forced into this worst scenario, because many of them are in a dominated reincarnation cycle, those people will suddenly find that they don't need to be there, simply do not need to be there. And when they fall asleep, they will be looking for their ancestral relations through the dream world above Earth, and Earth will put them in communion and union with the healers that can begin healing them so that they can locate away or bilocate away from those areas and go through the separation of density of soul families. They're the first wave of migration that gets off the world.
Right. The process is starting to become clearer to me, and I hope to the audience of what's actually underlying this whole awakening. Geopolitically, if you observe this geopolitically, the information you're putting forward will only become clearer later in the process, when the geopolitical stuff is out of the way. So a question for you at the moment, Andrew, is that in continents like the United States and Australia, how many womb chakras are in those locations? Are there chakras in every continent?
In Australia, there's 31, but a couple of them are under the water near the Barrier Reef. There's a big line of them that are there, because that's also a womb chakra. There's a number that are near Antarctica. So Australia has the access to the most amount immediately, like within a long boat ride or a super long helicopter ride or a jet that, as long as they can land somewhere, you can begin activating and functioning with those womb chakras, which will radically change the surface energy grid of Earth. And then it's about finding the control rooms. We haven't talked about those recently, but there are 40 control rooms. 21 have been taken over by both good, bad, and neutral. And there'll be the separation of density of all those walk-ins that I've been telling you that are coming in. We had 200 million walk-ins come in on Tuesday.
Wow.
200 million.
Ooh.
Okay?
So that's 200 million living humans who
are part of the system of domination and control, who now are no longer part of the system of domination and control. They have walk-ins in them.
Now the
all the walk-ins are going to do is go through a 6-day adjusting period, a 7-day adjusting period, where they adjust to the new contracts. These are the shock troops of the Galactic Central Sun. These guys are not nobodies. They've done domination and control so many times. They volunteered for the most difficult position of all, and that's D-Day.
So, in 6 or 7 days. Just to clarify one thing, when you say walk-ins, you're not necessarily meaning that a different soul will walk into a body, but a large chunk of their higher self will actually come in to actually, if you like, the way that Peter and Michael put it is to increase your soul mass, your consciousness.
It is both. It is both. There are those that put themselves in as resistance pre-Earth, as a cell of one, who chose to be activated during D-Day. And their higher soul has been in training, observing the world on a dream grid, or a geopolitical level, and their higher self is experiencing this world through the perceptions of the I Am self. And as the I Am self gives way to the fact that it's open, the resistance cell is open, the womb chakra is triggered, the rest of the contracts clear out, everything that's domination and control, and it returns that soul to the Earth original reality format. They become temporary reality programmers, and many of them are going to be your doctors, your lawyers, your firefighters, and your police officers worldwide. And the purpose they're being put in at this point in the game is to disrupt the flow of puppetry communication between the highest sources and the ground sources that may be given orders to open fire on a public to start riots.
Indeed.
So they're putting good people in the chain of command, so the chain of command is broken through domination and control. Because all domination and control can do is react. It's a set of programs that trigger cultural responses, and those cultural responses they've put in there are zealots, so they will and follow through on those actions.
Would that include the media that have been walked into?
Correct. Yeah, correct. The media.
there's two things going on in the groups that I work with at the moment. One is a pushing on the door of the media to print the truth, and the other is pushing on the banking system to recognise that the people are the value. So it would sound like the timing of these exercises is spot on, because if these walk-ins are going to be fully functional 6 or 7 days from Tuesday, then from last Tuesday, then was it a week ago that this happened?
Yep.
Okay, so they're pretty much ready to roll. So now's the time to move and actually, take advantage of that change of the game.
They're already moving. They're already working to do what it is that they do, which would disrupt communications from the highest forms of puppetry to the lowest forms of puppetry. Now, the other side of walk-ins are people that volunteered to be alive here now and to enter government, whether they're an army general or a private that, cooks food. Doesn't matter. Once they're in the system, they're in the system of domination control, they have access to the inner dream grids of those command structures and can act as dream saboteurs to prevent programs from being opened up on a massive dream scale. So you could activate, 10 units of the American nuclear facilities to go active into their minds. They are dreaming a real an event and scenario and could launch whatever it is that they wanted, because the system is using the sacred geometry dream cities to make them act, so that they can fracture disunity reality and make it harder for the walk-ins to take over the next phase of the Dreamtime event. First is going to go through the separation of densities, which means the older souls will collect to the older souls, and youngers to the youngers, and the middle age to the middle age. And once that process is finished through the dreaming, the elders will split with the youngers, and the middle age will split with both sides. And then you'll begin the search for soul family in the dream time. This is at the stage, like in Walking in Energy 3, where I said there'll be the children at the breakfast table at high school or junior high, which is before they eat breakfast. They'll be sharing dreams, or at lunch they'll be sharing dreams. And one will go, I had the same dream, and 10 others will say in the same period of the day, I had the same dream. And that'll begin what's called a whisper campaign, and that whisper campaign will spread throughout the internet as people begin to share videos. On a more adult scale, you'll be sitting in your cubicle, and the person next to you will go, oh my God, deja vu. And then you'll have deja vu of them going deja vu. And then somebody sitting next to you will go, oh my God, I have deja vu of your deja vu and your deja vu. Blatant in your face things that are representative of the infinite dream world bleeding over to the finite existing you.
And of course, the thing we need to bear in mind is just because someone's a child doesn't mean they have a young soul.
That's right.
It's now you call this the splitting of the densities, and this has been described by many people, or at least aspects of it have been described by many people of the Earth becoming like 2 or 3 different Earths. In actual fact, we'll all be in the same place on the same planet, but starting to share different realities. Is that a more accurate description of it?
Well, bubbles of realities will begin to form, and those bubbles of reality will transform the surface of Earth to its highest vibrational state, and still allow other bubbles of reality around it to not be rapidly affected by the higher vibration entities that are there. So if a low vibration entity or lower vibration entity wanted to enter a high vibration realm, it would just have to go through a little bit of an adaptation period. And when it wanted to leave, it could return to its own realm and then go through adaptation period, as could any of the higher go to the lowers. You set up rules for high energy beings come into different energy environments. And that allows all of those realities to be fully expressed. Here's another example of the dream world. You could find yourself dreaming during the day or during a nap and find yourself in high school, reliving an event where it was traumatic for you, but at the same time you're counseling yourself about that. And that's something that recently happened to Helene here, and I'm relaying that story because it was important for her, because she asked me exactly, is that what the separation of dream worlds is about? And I told her yes, because you're reliving yourself, teaching yourself, and you can literally find yourself in both places at once. And don't let that make you afraid. It's your opportunity to realize you're a multidimensional being. that you're living all of your past, present, future lives simultaneously, and it is the I am present you, the one who makes the physical choice of what skin layer of past, present, and future life you're going to express.
In people's experience, do you expect that most people will start to remember aspects of past lives clearly and recognize them as past lives?
Yes. The thing is, when we're born, we're ripped out of our embryonic sac and given a slap on the ass, 22 injections, and stuck in an incubator. They have broken love at all angles there. Well, what else they've done is taken the ability for you to remember your past lives. Now, we know that when you come into this world, you come in as a blank slate. Well, there's a fundamental rule of the reality that says if you're taken out of your opportunity to remember up to 55 or 40% of your past lives, and that is the mother and father sharing part space during new transition phases of that baby from the embryonic sac to being fully separate, to being separate from the umbilical cord, to being on their own, to being breastfed. And that cycle right there is what completes that soul's chance for remembering up to 30 or 40% of their past lives. Now imagine how different our world would be. Would reincarnation even be possible if we remembered 30% of our past lives?
It's hard to imagine what that would be like, actually. Difficult.
Right.
Difficult.
How could they trap you in a reincarnation cycle? They can't.
Yeah.
They can't even put fine print in your contracts without you going, hey.
Where did that come from?
Exactly.
In a properly functioning Earth, you know, we've been having past lives for tens of thousands of years. Some of us, there's people who've been here for a long, long time, trapped in this cycle. If the Earth was functioning as it should, how many lifetimes would you actually live on this planet? A handful?
That's a really, really, really good question. And the answer is thousands and thousands and thousands, because the experience is so much more incredible than other worlds.
But it would be a matter
much more incredible than other worlds.
But it would be a matter of choice rather than being trapped here.
Right. See, the thing is, many people, and this is my educated view of the Akashic Records and what the world was like in between domination and control breakages where beings lived here. They would come here and live a tremendous life, so rich and fulfilling and experiencing, they'd leave the next lifetime to go back and bring more people here.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
But they're leaving and coming back would not affect the linear time in which they were incarnating in. So they could go to another world and live 1,000,000 years and come back to Earth like they had never left.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the experience that's different. There are linear time observations they have to play on other worlds. The big thing about incarnating on planets is you may be looking for a person that's on the planet, and they may leave. They may get on a ship and go somewhere. And if you're incarnated there and have soul contracts and their ancestral karma, then you can't find them. And on Earth, you come back at the exact point you need to meet everyone. You've never left.
So the Earth is
a seamless exchange of experience.
Yeah. So that's a particularly unique aspect of the Earth, is it?
Yes, because of Earth's dreaming mind. For Earth to be able to send DNA wisdom and DNA objects to new worlds, blank Akashic Record worlds as a seed planet, it must be able to be linked into the dream grids of other planets. So the other important reason why Earth's a massive target is if you own the surface of Earth and are able to take over her dreaming body, you can dream invade up to hundreds of millions of other worlds and tune the planet's overmind into worlds that haven't even been created yet so that they could transfer DNA wisdom to them, because that's Earth's purpose. So literally Earth has access to millions and millions of other planets through the Dreamtime grid, and that's because those are brothers and sisters, nephews, cousins, and uncles to Earth when she still had a physical body.
Is that why the Earth was, or one of the reasons why the Earth was quarantined, so that couldn't be done?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, because that would be a very, very dangerous thing. That gives you access to, half this universe, I would suspect.
More than half. It gives you access to the spots that aren't even created yet.
Wow.
Because it's linked into the Prime Creator's exchange of wisdom between youth or age of souls. It's literally a part of that between an interuniversal exchange, because there is a need to exchange sentience from one universe to another to complete cycles. And then there are people that are nearing the end of their cycle in this universe and cannot go on until Earth is finished. And there are other universes in the same series. There's a big bottleneck. There's going to be a tremendous amount of flip over of beings that are 1, 2, and 3rd degree separation of the Prime Creator in this universe and other universes. Many of them will be force deported, and others will simply realize their mistakes and honor their duties as they're leaving.
So
pass the torch to the new elders.
So it isn't just the other races that we're aware of that are part of this universe. The Syrians, the Andromedans, etc., that are waiting for this graduation. It's actually affecting other universes as well.
Correct.
Okay, so
because Earth's capability of reaching out to so many worlds at once, and then you put timeline and genocide on a system that's meant to create brand new DNA.
The timeline
Here's an example. Here's an example. There was a species that came to Earth during the second rise of Lemuria, and the womb chakras were fully open, and they made a very, very special, we'll just call it like hedge shrub, like in France they have the hedgerows.
Yes.
Okay, and these things would grow all over the planet. They'd grow them into sacred geometry, and they grow them to basically gain sentience because they were massive hive of organizations. And they could connect to them in such a way that you could bring younger life into them and share dream space within them. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to describe, but these shrubs became a massive, massive part of other worlds because they adapted to lower sentient planets really fast. They raised the vibrations fast. It was an incredible invention. Well, that timeline of that one person who went to that one planet, who brought that first, round of seeds back to a new world, got erased. That means everything that uses that plant as the technology gets erased too. 1 degree of separation.
So that's
why Earth caused literally creation to come near an end.
That's just one example of the things that have happened.
That's one example of the many timeline incursions that have erased things that weren't supposed to be erased.
Have the timeline incursions stopped? Because it sounds like they're still going on.
They're going on here on Earth because Earth is the foundation of all of them, and this is the foundation is what they're targeting. It's not about what happens halfway through a captured time, and that's pointless. You have to get to the foundation to erase it.
So it's still going on here on Earth, and it's being done by forces here on Earth. Is that correct?
Both good, bad, and neutral. Many of them, what they're doing, are in this endless cycle of countering each other's move.
But it's not happening from the other planets that are literally were creating timeline incursions to try and become first species.
Correct. It's everything that's being using timelines is here on the planet.
So there's still a lot of move and counter-move going on at this local level.
Correct. What's being played out in the micro is a reflective of the macro. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. In every case. Look what's going on geopolitically. Okay?
Yeah.
Let's translate to that macro. So Obama isn't Obama. Obama represents the hope of a unified action. Doesn't matter if the information is right or wrong. And you have 5,383 species all unified to help in their own separate unity consciousness to maintain a quarantine at a proper way so Earth can go through its awakening, at the same time removing many millions of layers of multidimensional technology that is in a fortified Earth, 9 layers of pyramid fortification. So it's a tremendous, tremendous reach to do this.
Any other particular aspects of what's going on currently that are good examples of the micro and the macro? I mean, Obama's a good one. What about the Pope? What about the Pope? How does he play?
When the Pope, I'll get to in a second. Putin yelling at Obama and Obama yelling at Putin. That is an example of the Pleiadians and the Orions and Syrian faction realizing that some of the people that they've put in charge have become zealots, and the upper parts of the political organization that is in unity consciousness has realized that there are subcultures of unity consciousness that are withholding information to unity consciousness in whole. And that's the most detrimental thing to any unity consciousness, is the pockets of information that are withheld.
Fascinating. So anything that's going on politically is simply, it's reflected at a greater scale around us.
Right.
So,
okay. Example, the actions of what goes on in our world are like the breathing of lungs. So the CIA is a big chunk of a lung. The Russian version of the other KGB is another version of the lungs. What's going on in London may be the colon or the sphincter, ha ha ha.
Yep.
So on and so forth, representing the body of expression. And the womb chakras are the representation that Earth's going through a menstrual cycle that's been withheld on a planetary scale.
It's a pretty straightforward relationship, really. So the Pope is actually playing what role in the macro?
In the macro, that's the other dark forces that are contract holders, because they're the puppeteers, the off-world puppeteers.
Okay.
And the Pope is representation that I'm the puppet, but that I'm live puppet. I'm talking through this vessel. And there's a realization that there isn't one person in control of the Pope. That he's a sellout, and has always been a sellout for whatever layer of multidimensional entity that's going to take domination and control by the hands and say, it's mine for the next 20 years, so somebody kicks me out of the power.
Yeah. Andrew, we've just passed the second hour. Unfortunately, we'll have to wind the show up here. I have a need to not get off my schedule too much today. Really glad you could make it in for this last half hour. It's been absolutely fantastic to jump in with that information about the walk-ins, because that confirms a whole lot of things that are going on, should need to do and need to keep going on. Is there anything you wanted to just put in to kind of put a full stop at the end of today's show?
I'm going to tell people to turn off the TV.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean really turn off the TV. This is your opportunity to turn off the etheric programming, to broadcasting, to turn off the Facebook, to turn all of that off and just feel the earth. Just feel the earth. You're at this vital, important time where you got to feel the earth. It needs your dream attention. So before you go to sleep, visualize the North Pole, the Aurora Borealis. If you need to go get a YouTube video of it to burn it into your mind, please do that. That is where your ancestors exist. That's where you get to create a spiritual cord of equity, what is a fundamental law built into this reality. So you may find remedy and resolve to any other action in this reality that is affecting your free will. It is where you declare your free will in front of all your ancestors. And it's your given right by living on Earth to do this.
You're referring then to...
Tell yourself before you go to sleep, I dream with the Earth Mother in the Aurora Borealis.
Lovely. And of course there's the soul contract revocations to cement this in place.
Yes. I encourage people to make their own. You know yourself better than anyone else. And you know what your habit patterns and addictions are, and you can revoke the habit patterns and addictions.
That's fantastic advice, actually. Just the act of writing them is as important as the act
Absolutely.
of saying it out loud. So, yeah, look, I'd thoroughly encourage people to do that. You know, think of the North Pole. I've just realised that there's certain things I see in my head when I'm drifting off to sleep, which actually are the Aurora Borealis. It's actually, I've realised that the green lights that I see when I go to sleep are actually probably that.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And that layer has always been there for you. There are times when people look back when they were a child, and you'd close your eyes and all those colors and swirls and everything, and you'd ask your parents what are there, and no, that's just the stuff you see when you close your eyes. No, that is the entrance to the dream world. That is how your eyes perceive the invisible layers of the dream world, which is like the aurora borealis, which, if anyone has ever seen, has streamers and patterns and things that explode. And it's just like looking at your eyelids when you're a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant connection.
Each different bubble of reality is true.
A galactic historian is a person that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma.
Nudge, nudge. It's the Holy Grail. Improvise. Mysterious. It's counter psychic intelligence.
Why is DNA farming of this star cluster so important?
Because we do manifest our reality. We do create our reality.
Hello, let's create, let's co-create, and let's change this world with love. No matter if you're from Alpha Centauri or Earth, we all began with the same birthing process. We live in a limited point of view. Living the mystical life daily is about striving for the unlimited point of view. Each day, each human being gets an infinite amount of choices. The level of awareness that you are working at means you have a responsibility to be equal with it. How does one truly let go of expectation? You could make the moment that you wake up to the moment you go to sleep sacred. The keys to success: choice, 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 and choice.